Now that we are fairly stable in our individual consciousness, we can create a new form of group consciousness, namely one in which we attain access to all information via our DNA without being forced or remotely controlled about what to do with that information. We now know that, just as on the internet, our DNA can feed its proper data into the network, can call up data from the network and can establish contact with other participants in the network. Remote healing, telepathy or remote sensing about the state of relatives etc. can thus be explained. Some animals also know from afar when their owners plan to return home. That can be freshly interpreted and explained via the concepts of group consciousness and hypercommunication. Any collective consciousness cannot be sensibly used over any period of time without a distinctive individuality. Otherwise we would reverse to a primitive herd instinct that is easily manipulated. Hypercommunication in the new millennium means something quite different. Researchers think that if humans with full individuality would regain group consciousness, they would have a godlike power to create, alter and shape things on Earth. And humanity is collectively moving towards such a group consciousness of the new kind. 50% of today's children will be problem children as soon as they go to school. The system lumps everyone together and demands adjustment. But the individuality of today's children is so strong that they refuse this adjustment and the giving up of their idiosyncrasies in the most diverse ways. At the same time, more and more clairvoyant children are born. Something in those children is striving more and more towards the group consciousness of the new kind, and it will no longer be suppressed. As a rule, weather, for example, is rather difficult to influence by a single individual. But it may be influenced by a group consciousness, nothing new to some tribes doing it in their rain dances. Weather is strongly influenced by Earth resonance frequencies, the so-called Schumann frequencies. But those same frequencies are also produced in our brains, and when many people synchronize their thinking or individuals focus their thoughts in a laser-like fashion, then it is, scientifically speaking, not at all surprising if they can thus influence weather. Researchers in group consciousness have formulated the theory of Type I civilizations. A humanity that developed a group consciousness of the new kind would have neither environmental problems nor scarcity of energy. For if it were to use its mental power as a unified civilization, it would have control of the energies of its home planet as a natural consequence. A theoretical Type II civilization would even be able to control all energies of their home galaxy. When a great number of people get together very closely, potentials of violence also dissolve. It looks as if here, too, a kind of humanitarian consciousness of all humanity is created. At the Love Parade, for example, where every year about 1 million young people congregate, there have never been any brutal riots, as have occurred, for instance, at sporting events. The name of the event alone is not seen as the cause here. The result of an analysis indicated rather that the number of people was too great to allow a tipping over to violence. To come back to the DNA, it apparently is also an organic superconductor that can work at normal body temperature. Artificial superconductors require extremely low temperatures of between -200 and -140 C to function. As researchers recently learned, all superconductors are able to store light and thus information. This is a further explanation of how the DNA can store information. There is another phenomenon linked to DNA and wormholes. Normally, these super small wormholes are highly unstable and are maintained only for the tiniest fractions of a second. Under certain conditions, stable wormholes can organize themselves, which then form distinctive vacuum domains in which, for example, gravity can transform into electricity. Vacuum domains are self-radiant balls of ionized gas that contain considerable amounts of energy. There are regions in Russia where such radiant balls appear very often. Following the ensuing confusion, the Russians started massive research programs leading finally to some of the discoveries mentioned above. Many people know vacuum domains as shiny balls in the sky,